Why do you want people to know more about the HPV vaccine?
Why? Because most of us have got it. For starters, it's inherent within about 50% of us. But yet it's that kind of term that we're not too familiar with.
Yes.
We're all familiar with STIs, which used to be STDs, but now is the more commonly acceptable term.
Trained, yeah.
Yeah, I've been listening to you all day.
What is the HPV
A
vaccine?
human papillomavirus is well, you're better off explaining.
No, you're so good. I'm listening to you.
Okay, so
It's a virus. It's a very, very common virus. There's about 120, 130 different types. Probably, 50% of us carry it. Most of it is uneventful, doesn't do anything to us. Most of the time our immune systems clear it. Sometimes it can cause things like genital warts. Sometimes it can cause changes to cells that can, over a long time, lead to certain cancers like cervical cancer.
So very recently, I didn't actually realise that boys could get a vaccination against preventing types of cancer. Obviously, it wouldn't be for boys, but Jade's cancer was HPV. Cervical is almost, in all cases, stems from HPV. But in boys, you're more likely to see neck and throat cancer, anal cancer, and penile cancer. And obviously, my job is to protect my teenage boys. So this would be something that would spark my interest.
Because there is a vaccine for girls now, isn't there?
There has been a vaccine for girls for a long time, as Dr. Brazier correctly says. That there now is one available for boys. It's the same vaccine, actually. We should always have been giving it to boys.
If Jade had had this vaccination, could it have saved her?
It would have altered the course, you'd imagine, yeah. I mean,
I think very likely.
almost definitely.
Really?
Do you think, it doesn't just prevent against boys getting throat and all the other cancers, it actually stops it from spreading, I can only assume, to other women who haven't had the vaccination, so they can no longer contract HPV, is that right?
Well, that's the interesting part, because if we're treating 50% of the population by only taking care of girls, if we took care of boys as well, you'd imagine that cervical cancer would cease to exist.
Yeah.
I think that's a very real possibility, and what a fantastic, empowering thought to think we could actually see no more cases of cervical cancer ever because we have a vaccine.
Apart from the vaccine that's now rolled out in schools for girls, women can get smears on the NHS to check if they have got cancer, and I know I've got all the information here, so they can get it every year, at varying degrees from 25 right up to 65. Now I'm 70 and I still have smears because I still think that, I want to be absolutely 100% sure. But even when you have a smear and they tell you you've got abnormal cells, that's worrying for women. There'll be a lot of women watching who've been told they've got abnormal cells. That's what happens.
I remember when someone said it to me and I automatically thought, I've got cancer, or I'm going to get it, or something's going to happen. But I think it's best to not scare people, and the HPV takes a really long time to develop into something sinister. So if you get your smears, you can keep on top of it. You can stop it from happening altogether.
And doing this show today has reminded me, after I had Bunny, I had a smear, and they said you've got abnormal cells. You don't need to worry about it now, but you have to have more regular checks. And thinking about it, Bunny's 3 in August and I haven't had one, so maybe this is a reminder to go and get one.
What sort of distresses me slightly is the uptake for smear tests from women is not very good. Not enough women are having them.
Because they're scared.
I think because they're worried, and it's not a particularly pleasant experience, I'm told. I've not had one myself, but,
I think a lot of women as well find the thoughts of it embarrassing. Most of the women I've spoken to have gone, oh no, I'm too embarrassed.
Do you think about what the end result of having it?
I'm taking you for a swim.
I know, I need to have, and they're not that bad though, are they?
They're not bad at all.
You're only getting your bits out.
No, but it is interesting that the smear test and the mammogram were obviously designed by men to make women feel as uncomfortable and unpleasant as possible. Because I can't think of another test than having one's breast slammed between 2 bits of metal.
You don't have a prostate, do you? And you've never had yours checked, have you?
Right, talking about that, obviously women can have smears, obviously for cervical cancer. Is there any kind of test for men that they can have to check if they've got it?
There isn't really an equivalent, and I'm so glad you said that, because that's the problem. We don't have a screening test for men to say whether you have or don't carry HPV, and that's why, again, being able to vaccinate against it is a sort of extra layer of reassurance that we can't otherwise give you.
Can you get this vaccine on the NHS?
You can't currently for boys. No, you can't. For gay men, you can. For gay men, you can. For teenage boys, you can't, but you can get it privately. Yeah.
I remember one of the things that I didn't realise was that it doesn't have to be sex that gives you HPV, and I didn't know that. It can just be contact with somebody, and I think that's really important to...
What, as in holding hands, contact,
like kissing, or even just like bodily contact. You can just touch.
I always say close skin-to-skin contact.
You can wear a
is enough.
condom and you're still not
And
protected.
still, it's not 100% protective. So it's important you still have smears. You know, nothing's 100% reliable in life, probably, apart
What
from
you also
taxes.
really want to protect against is your children might have had these vaccinations. They might naively think that means they don't need to wear protection. It might mean they don't need to go for their smear. And obviously, this is just a preventative measure, but an important one as well.
So obviously, with you having boys, have you? Your eldest now's 13.
Yeah.
Have you had the conversation with him?
I did yesterday, and you can imagine how that went. Obviously, when you're talking about bums and willies, you straight away are kind of met with an awkward uncomfortability. But it's. But actually, when I said that there was a link to the way that mum's cancer was formed, that's where it come from. It come from HPV. I explained to him what it meant, and all of a sudden it had his interest because obviously it now really matters to him. So when you say to him, Bobby, you can have a vaccination that will help prevent types of cancer forming potentially for you. Is that something that you're interested in? All of a sudden the maturity comes out. So you know, I think a lot of parents probably shy away from having that conversation because maybe it's more awkward for them than it is the reaction in their child, but I don't care about that. It's my responsibility.